we'll start. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube live session. And this is our session number 58, actually, that I hold now every Sunday evening at 8:30 p.m. Brisbane time. Thanks for those attending here in Australia because 8:30 it's quite already late for an Australian standard, for probably for a Brazilian standard and other cultures is not quite late, but it is late anyway. And if I have any audience from Brazil, thank you very much for waking up early. It's probably majority of the country 7:30 a.m. in Brazil or in other countries around that area there. Thank you very much if you're watching this, or you could be watching in the replay of this video. And tonight I will be talking about the career episodes, what it is, why do you need to do it, the format and the structure of the career episodes, and also I'm going to give 7 tips to write a good career episode. But first, for those that don't know me, my name is Gerson Ida and I'm the founder of the www.engineersinaustralia.com, a website to share content of value and useful information to help you in your journey to validate your engineering qualification in Australia. And I also share information about workplace health and safety, environmental management, the day-to-day of an engineering in Australia, and about professional engineering recruitment and jobs as well. I actually have a special series, how to get a professional job here in Australia. And this series about some videos that I record to help you guys to get your professional job in Australia. And if you stay until the end, I will give you my free ebook that I wrote about the 10 challenges that most overseas engineers they face when they arrive in Australia. Those challenges are the challenges that I faced when I arrived here some 15 years ago. So those challenges, I believe that if you know about them, you can better prepare yourself for a future migration to Australia. And a very important news this month, from the 16th of August, it's not next Sunday but the Sunday after, I will be promoting my free workshop, Engineering Qualification Validation, here in Australia. And this is to help you to fulfill your dream to be recognized as an engineer in Australia. And more information in how to register after tip number 4. So before I start, I would like to know, what is your main question when you are writing your career episode? So if you let me know what's your main question, and in the middle of the tonight's session I will be checking those questions and then I can answer them live. So I'll start with my content in about 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. I will be checking some of the questions and then I'll be answering them. So let's get down to the business now. And I'm really happy to be here to share my experience in the validation process, having done obviously the process myself. I've done back in 2005-6, and also having helped many other engineers in this process of validating their engineering qualification. So, career episode. What is it? So it's very important that you read the Engineers Australia Migration Skills Assessment booklet, because it has a very clear definition. And the definition that I'm going to share with you is straight from the booklet, because I don't want to make up things, or I don't want to say things that are not quite correct. So the Engineers Australia booklet has a very clear definition. The career episode, it is an account of your engineer education or work experience. And each career episode focuses upon a specific period or distinct aspect of your engineering activity. And each career episode must focus on a different period or aspect of your engineering activity. Each episode should focus on how you applied your engineering knowledge and skills in the nominated occupation. So just few clarifications on this statement. They talk about a specific period or distinct aspect of your engineering activity. So this is because the specific periods, especially if you have already a few years of experience, you've got your experience while at university, and then some experience as a graduate engineer, and then a little bit more experience with as a mature engineer. So that's why it's important to have different aspects and different periods of your engineering experience. Yeah, but some may ask, oh, Jerson, but I just graduated now. I don't have work experience. So how come can I have different aspects or different periods of my engineering experience? Well, in this case, your specific periods or distinct aspects will have to be from your university experience, so your academic experience. And in the nominated occupation. So every time that you are applying for your CDR, your competency demonstration report, to get your engineering qualification validated, you have to choose what is your nominated occupation. In my example, I've chosen civil engineer. That was my nominated occupation under the category of professional engineer. Remembering that there are three categories: the professional engineer category, the engineering technologist, and engineering associate. And then under these categories, there are several engineering nominated occupations: civil engineers, mechanical engineers, chemical engineers, petroleum engineers, industrial engineers, environmental engineers. There are some 25 different occupations, engineer occupations. So the career episode is also is about your own work, can be academic or professional. Remembering that Engineers Australia does not require work experience, so you can just use your academic experience if you don't have work experience, or you can use also your academic experience if your work experience is not very related to the nominated occupation according to ANZ SEO definition. And remember that as part of your report, you gotta write three career episodes, obviously based on three engineering experiences, engineering problems, engineering projects, and so on. They gotta be from different periods of your engineering experience. And I'm going to talk later a little bit about plagiarism as well. So the other part that I want to cover tonight is, why do you need to do it? So why do you need to write career episodes? Well, this is according to the Migration Skills Assessment booklet. It's a requirement, one of the reports that you gotta write to be able to have your engineering qualification assessed by Engineers Australia. So the career episodes, three of them, they are part of the reports you need to do if you are applying under the pathway that's called CDR, Competency Demonstration Report, or stage one of membership eligibility. Remembering that migration skills assessment process is for migration purposes. You are then validating your qualification, so you can get your qualification recognized and then apply for a visa, for example. So your migration agent will be able to help you with that. Or if you already if you're not after a visa, perhaps you are already a permanent resident, or you have a visa that allows you to work and you're not after a visa. So there is the other process, which is called the stage one of membership eligibility, which is very similar to the migration skills assessment. There are just few differences. But in those two processes, you gotta write your CDR, your competency demonstration report, which will include then the three career episodes. So the other part is, what's the format and structure of each of the career episodes. So each career episode must be written in English. You gotta use your own words, and obviously it will be your evidence of your communication skills. So some people they think, oh yeah, but I just have IELTS score 6, for example, and my report is not going to be perfect. Well, if you have an IELTS or equivalent to 6, it means that your English is the bare minimum to be assessed by Engineers Australia. So Engineers Australia will assess your report considering that you have a score number 6 in IELTS. So you got to be careful that some people they ask translators to translate their career episode, and you cannot do that. You got to write yourself, because if you ask somebody to write and translate to you, it's plagiarism, and you can be banned between 12 and 36 months. So it's a lot of period that you won't be able to apply again. So if you have an IELTS level 6, for example, in all bands, obviously it is expected that you will have some mistakes in your English, because as you know, IELTS, the maximum, I think it's 9. Obviously, if you have an IELTS 9, if you got 9 in all bands, uh, writing, reading, speaking, and reading, so it means that your English is really, really good. So then it is expected that your report will be very good as well. And you need to include also, and this information is from the booklet as well, because obviously the booklet is your Bible. So the information that I'm talking here tonight, it's not from me. I'm not making that up. It's based on the Engineers Australia booklet. You will need to include reliable and sufficient engineering evidences of your own work. For example, diagrams, photos that you took, calculations that you made, tables that you used, and so on. So you gotta use those things to support each career episode. It means that if you said that you have designed, let's say, you have designed a concrete pillar or a concrete structure, and when you designed that structure, you used some technical specifications, you calculated uh, the area of the steel reinforcement, and you made some, you calculated the section of the pillar as well. So it's important that you specify what was the technical specification that you used, what was the formula that you used, the steps that you follow to calculate those structures. If you built that structure, if you had pictures of that structure, it would be good to attach those. If you have the drawing plans of the structural calculations with the steel reinforcement, the concrete quantities, the cross sections, and everything in AutoCAD, for example, it's a good idea to attach like a PDF of that as well. In terms of number of words for each career episode, the booklet suggests that you should be writing between 1,000 and 2,500 words. So minimum of, obviously, minimum of 1,000 and maximum of 2,500 words. And you need to clearly demonstrate the application of the engineering knowledge and skills in the nominated occupation. This means what you did and how you did it, focusing on your personal contribution in the episode. If you just attach, for example, your position description, it's not a good idea. Engineers Australia, they want to know what you actually did, how you actually did it, the problems that you encountered, how was your methodology to solve that problem, and what was the outcome of that problem. And don't forget to number each paragraph to help you to put together the summary statement. So that's about the format of the career episode. Now about the structure of each career episode according to the Migration Skills Assessment booklet from Engineers Australia. So the structure is divided in 4 sections. The first section is introduction, the second section is the background, the third section is the personal engineering activity, and the fourth section is the summary. So just a little bit more details about each section. The introduction is approximately 150 words, And this will introduce the reader to the career episode and should include things like the chronology, which is the dates and the duration of your project or experience, the geographical location where your engineering experience took place, and the organization name, the company name or the university name, and so on. The background, which is the second section of the career episode, it's between 200 and 500 words. And the background sets the scene and provides the context of your study, work experience, and also it should be included things like the nature of your overall engineering project, the objectives of your project, the nature of your particular work area. You got to put an organizational chart showing your position. For example, there's the director there, the manager, and then if you were the engineer below, it's important to have the organizational chart. Put your position, put your name. That indicates where you were in the project or in the company. And if it is available, if you can get hold of that, it's important to attach the role description, including the main functions, obviously, that you did. So that's the second section. The third section is about your personal engineering activity between 600 and 1500 words. And this is the main body of your narrative. And this is where the assessor is going to read, and probably you will have, well, certainly you will have all your engineering practices and experiences and the narrative. That's the main body of the narrative. And you will need to describe in detail your engineering experience. And this should include things like how you applied your engineering knowledge and skills, the tasks you did and how you went about doing them, the technical challenges or problems you faced and how you resolved them, the strategies you used, including any original or creative design work. Very important to include design work. And also how you worked as part of a team or as their team leader. And then the fourth section is a summary. It's about, again, 150 words. Here you will sum up how the engineering project went and your contribution to its results. And it should include things like your view of the overall project. You gotta say, did the project meet the objectives? Remember that in the background you stated the objectives of the project. In the summary, you gotta close them out. So, did the project actually meet the objectives? And what was your personal role contribution to the project? So, that's a very brief summary of how you need to write your career episodes in terms of the format and the structure. And obviously, this is all in the booklet, Migration Skills Assessment booklet. So please make sure that you read it very, very well. And please note that whenever you, and this is very important, guys, note that whenever you use other people's work, you need to properly use in-text citations and references list. If you don't do this, Engineers Australia will be considered as plagiarism. So if you tell other people's work, if you attach other people's diagrams or tables, even if it is from technical specifications, you got to make sure that you reference all of those things, making very, very clear that wasn't you that did it. So if you don't say anything, Engineers Australia will consider that you're saying that it was you that you did it. And if they found on the internet that you didn't do it, you take or you run the risk of being caught by plagiarism. So I'm just going to check if there is any particular question there. Just checking YouTube. Yeah, no questions there. No questions on Instagram as well. Okay. So now I'm going to share with you 7 tips to better write a career episode. Obviously, there are so many tips, so many hints, but I kind of selected seven, which are some of the seven most common questions and tips that I usually give also to my students from my online mentoring program. So, tip number one, read the booklet. So, the Migration Skills Assessment booklet from Engineers Australia is your Bible. Please read it several times so you are very familiar with the process and with what you need to do. You're going to waste your time if you start writing and preparing your CDR if you don't read very well the booklet. So the booklet is your Bible. Go to Engineers Australia website and download the latest version. I believe that the latest version is from, I was just checking, from March 2020. So make sure that you always get the latest version. When you Google Migration Skills Assessment Booklet, Engineers Australia, don't go to the PDF document. Go to the website from Engineers Australia and download from there. Good morning, Mauro. Good morning to you. You're probably in Brazil, and thank you very much for waking very early and attend this live session. It's probably close to 8 a.m. in Brazil. Tip number two: watch out for silly mistakes. So this is really really important, and it happens when people they actually don't read the booklet. Please don't make silly mistakes where the instructions are clearly defined in the booklet, because this sort of silly mistakes they really really annoy the assessor, and it shows that you are not valuing his or her time and you are not taking this assessment seriously. So please read carefully and make sure that you are following the the booklet and don't make those silly mistakes. If you make silly mistakes, the assessor he or she will be annoyed, and it's not a good idea to have the assessor annoyed. Some examples that I've seen of these silly mistakes, it can be from a simple scanning of documents. As you know, the booklet says that you got to scan documents in high resolution, minimum of 300 dpi's, and it's got to be in color. So if you scan in low resolution and then if you scan in black and white, it's very very clear in the booklet. So if the assessor needs to ask you to re-scan the documents because it's not meeting the quality requirements, it clearly shows that you didn't read the booklet and you're wasting his or her time. Another mistake is in terms of curriculum vitae. There are specific informations that you gotta have in your curriculum vitae. Your curriculum vitae for this assessment is not as the same as a curriculum vitae that you send when you get when you try to get a job. So the CV sometimes they don't have the information required from the organizations, like for example the period of experience, work or study, the main tasks that you performed, the name and contact details of your former supervisor, and so on. So there's a list of the information that's needed in the curriculum vitae. So make sure that you read the booklet, and when you submit your curriculum vitae as part of your personal information, it does have everything. Another example of silly mistake that I've seen a lot is that when you're writing your career episode, the verbs that you are using, they're not always in the past, which does not really demonstrate that you performed those activities. And the booklet is very clear. It says that it's a narrative of the past. The career episode is a narrative of the past. So it's a thing that you did, it's something that is already gone and past. So when you're writing this narrative, it's got to be in the past if it is something that you did. So, and the booklet repeats that few times. So if you don't write verbs in the past, it means that you didn't really pay attention when you were reading. Tip number 3, check the ANZ SEO occupation definition. It is really important to make sure that your career episode is about an engineering experience, study, or work that matches the ANZ SEO occupation definition. And ANZ SEO means Australian and New Zealand Standard Classification of Occupations, and is part of the Australian Bureau of Statistics, ABS. So the website is abs.gov.au. Obviously, it's a government agency, and they use the ANZ SEO definitions for migration purposes. And the definitions there are the ones that Engineers Australia will be using to check if your career episode experience is relevant and valid to the occupation nomination you are applying for. I'm going to put in the comments the website of the ANZ SEO for engineers so you can check your occupation there. I just selected a couple of examples of some of the common occupations that I usually see here. The first one, civil engineer. Obviously, I'm a civil engineer, so it's easy for me. But according to ANZ SEO, the civil engineer, they plan, design, they organize, and they oversee the construction and operation of dams, bridges, pipelines, gas and water supply schemes, sewerage systems, airports, and other civil engineering projects. Specializations, they also include airfield engineer officer for the Air Force and also hydraulics engineer. You got to understand that for a civil engineer, as you can see, it's a lot about infrastructure projects, heavy engineering. So just pay attention for that. I've got a couple of questions in Instagram. I'm going there soon. The other common engineering I see, and that's probably going to fit you more, mechanical engineer. Mechanical engineers, according to ANZ SEO definition, they plan, design, organize, and they oversee the assembly, erection, operation, and maintenance of mechanical and process plant and installations. And the specializations under mechanical engineer, they can be air conditioning engineer and heating and ventilation engineer. So I've got a link here that I'm going to copy and paste in Facebook and also here in YouTube. I am probably not able to copy and paste in Instagram because I am actually on the mobile. But on the mobile, if you Google ANZ SEO engineer, so just Google that, and you will get one of the first results is the ANZ SEO website, and you can click in there, and you have several categories of engineers. You've got civil engineers, you've got mechanical engineers, chemical engineers, petroleum engineers. There's a category for other professional engineers where you're going to find environmental engineers and other types of engineers as well. Just going to the question from Duda, I think. Can I write about a project of a house that I did? I did the ground floor, the third project, and I visited the construction. Yeah, that's a very good question, Duda. I believe that you're probably a civil engineer. Um, if you did the structural design as well, I believe that's probably a good idea. And why do I say that? Because here in Australia, It's a bit different from what civil engineers they do in Brazil. I'm assuming if you are from Brazil. I am from Brazil. I also built and designed many houses in Brazil. But in Brazil, you can do the what they call the layout plan, which is the architectural plan, and then you do uh, the hydraulic design, you do the electrical design, you do the structural design, you do the roofing, and then you also do other designs if needed in terms of fire prevention, etc. So if you've done the structural calculation of that house, it's probably a good example to use because you will be able then to demonstrate a lot of the calculations you had to calculate. I don't know if it was timber or concrete or steel, but if you used some structural calculation softwares, if you had to calculate in a spreadsheet that you put together and you did the calculations, you used technical specifications, the NBR, whatever, you'll probably be able to do it. So, in terms of construction, if you've just visited the construction or did you actually manage the construction of the project, uh, I'm not quite sure. So, you gotta just remember that it's gotta be design, uh, calculations, analysis, all of those raw engineering activities. That's what Engineers Australia is after. So a lot of people that I talk to, they sometimes they graduated and they ended up just refurbishing houses or refurbishing shops. And unfortunately, this is not quite a civil engineer job here in Australia. There's a lot of builders that they do, and those builders they don't need to be a civil engineer. So obviously, if you're building a house, there will be a civil engineer that will be designing the structural component, the bracing, the footings uh, of those houses. But if you haven't done that, it's going to be a struggle. But if you did the structural calculation of that house, calculated the footings, the structure, the roofing, you probably can use that as part of your career episode. Just going back to my notes again. Tip number four. Tip number four, take advantage of the number of words. So each section of the career episode has a minimum and a maximum number of words you need to write. So my suggestion is for you to take advantage of the number of words and try to write to the maximum number or close to the maximum number. And remember, there are 16 competencies, 1 6, that you need to demonstrate in writing. So when you write next to the maximum number of 2,500 words, this will enable you to demonstrate better each of the 16 competencies, making your CDR more solid and stronger. So some people I've seen already some career episodes with 1,200 words. In my opinion, it becomes very, very superficial. It becomes shallow, and you're not able to demonstrate those competencies very well. So it's better to write close to the 2,500 words. And Mauro, he's putting in Instagram, if I'm just graduate, um, have I have any chance to be hired? Well, there's job for everyone, obviously depending on your skills and capabilities. But if you are just graduate, it's certainly a good advice for you to get validated first, because if you are in Brazil and if you are applying for a job here in Australia, you gotta think that there's a lot of graduate engineers here in Australia that graduated in Australian universities. So your competition will be against all of those graduate engineers here in Australia. So it can be done. Is it easy? Probably not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult because you also got to have your work visa. So just if you even if you just validated your qualification as a graduate engineer, for example, mechanical engineer, remember that you also got to have your work visa. You got to have your work, you got to be able to work, especially full time. So, and you'll be competing against other graduate engineers. But Australia is a country of opportunities, and I've seen many overseas engineers, graduate engineers, that they came here and they got a good job because they start making network, and a lot of the overseas engineers, they have that extra motivation because you left your own country and then you come to a country like Australia. So it's already showing that you have a lot of determination, and companies, they do appreciate that, and they will consider, well, you left your country, you you had a job to validate your qualification, you ended up validating your qualification, and now you're applying for a graduate engineer position. So they will take that effort in consideration. So perhaps all of this effort from coming from Australia to, sorry, from your country to Australia, it can be a point of difference already. So that was tip number 4. And I promised that after tip number 4, I was going to, just a second, I think my cat is trying to get in, making some noise. Just a second, please. Yes, it was my cat. And I'm just going to put my microphone again, and you probably saw that I am in my pajamas. Um, so, and I said that I was going to share with you how you can register to the my free workshop, Engineering Qualification and Validation, to help you to fulfill your dream to be recognized as an engineer here in Australia. So what you need to do, you just need to register using the link that I'm just going to put in the comments. I'm just putting the in Facebook, and I'm going to put here in YouTube, and then those ones in Instagram, you can go to the link in my bio. So you go to my bio, and then there's a link, linktree/Gerson Ida. When you click on that link, there will be few buttons. The first button there is the button for the uh, to register to my free workshop. So you just need to go there and register there. So yes, and the opening live webinar is going to be on Sunday morning, not next Sunday, but the Sunday after, the 16th of August at 10 a.m. Brisbane time. So it's going to be 10 a.m. here, Brisbane time. Is going to be Saturday, 9 p.m. in Brazil, and obviously other countries. You gotta check the conversion of the time. So 10 a.m. Brisbane time on Sunday, and in Brazil is going to be Saturday, the 15th of August at 9 p.m. Brasilia time. And in this live webinar, I'm going to be explaining how the free workshop will work, and I'm going to send you the link to the webinar to your email. So it's really, really important that once you register to the email, you're going to receive a confirmation of your registration. So make sure that you save my email address as your contact, and mark it as a favorite address so it doesn't really go to the junk mailbox. So let's keep going with tips Tip number 5, don't forget to write about design work. So that's a very important tip again. One very important part is the demonstration of your design competencies. The CDR assessment, Competency Demonstration Report Assessment, is about your engineering knowledge and skills, and design is a critical component of this assessment. Guys, please make sure that you remember this. Design work is very, very important. I'm going to translate in Portuguese because majority of my audience are Brazilians. When I talk about design, is about projeto. Se você projetou algo, projetou uma estrutura, projetou uma máquina, projetou um equipamento, projetou algum sistema. So it's really, really important to have design work. So when you're choosing an experience to write in your career episode, please make sure you include design work, detailing all steps you took to deliver that design work, the technical specifications, the assumptions that you used, the tests and trials, any modeling that you did, design review procedures, safety in design considerations, options that you had to consider, and so on. Really, really important. Tip number 6 now, tables with headings not in English language. So if you're using a table or a diagram or a sketch or a drawing plan that the language is not English, it's certainly a good idea to have a legend with the heading translation to English. So you've got a table and you got all those headings on the table. If it is in Spanish or Portuguese or whatever language, it's really important to have a legend just to translate those headings to English, so the assessor can understand what the table, what the picture, what the diagram is about. Same care with acronym in your mother language. Although they may have some sense to you, it will most certainly not make any sense to the assessor, and this can impact in your assessment. So acronyms, when you have 2 or 3 letters meaning something, it could be meaning something in Portuguese or Spanish or in your own language, but it may not mean anything in English. So in English, it could even be a different meaning. So if you have acronyms, please make sure that you state what that acronym means and then translate into English. Remember that what you write and how you write is part of your communications assessment. That's written in the booklet. The communication assessment or your communication assessment is going to also be assessed as part of your report writing. And then tip number 7, you gotta pay attention when you use the words such would or could. And as I mentioned in the beginning, the career episode is a narrative of the past. So be very careful when you use the words would or could. It denotes that perhaps you haven't done it yet. If you are trying to say that you did it, just use the verb in the past. So let's explore a little bit with one example. So let's say, for example, that you wrote, during the delivery of my water pump design work, I would consider the distance and height that the fluid would have to be pumped, as well as the viscosity. So please note that if you write in this way, put in the comments what do you think is wrong with that. I'll read the statement again. During the delivery of my water pump design work, I would consider the distance and height that the fluid would have to be pumped, as well as the viscosity. So, can you clearly state that you actually did that or not? So, if you are reading that statement, can you say that you actually did it, or it's not clear? So it's not quite clear. It says that you would, so it doesn't really mean that you did. So the right way to write it, it would be during during the delivery of my water pump design work, I considered the distance and height that the fluid had to be pumped, as well as the viscosity. So in this case, I'm actually stating that I consider it, I use it, not that I would consider it, because if you would consider it, it means that you haven't done it yet. But when you say that you consider it, it's because you actually did it. You considered the distance and the height and the viscosity of that fluid. So it's a subtle detail and change, but it's really, really important uh, that you don't write using would and could. And as I promised, if you haven't downloaded my free ebook about the 10 challenges that most overseas engineers they face when they arrive in Australia, you can request your free PDF by clicking on the link that I'm going to put in the comments. And for those in Instagram, you can actually go to my link in my bio, and you can request my PDF, also clicking in one of the buttons. When you click in my link tree slash Gersonido, it will open up a lot of buttons, and scroll down, there will be two buttons, one button for the English version, and there's also the ebook in Portuguese version. So just going to copy and paste in YouTube, and I've got some questions in YouTube that I'm going to read it. Uh, yes, Pila, say hi, Gerson. Thanks for helping out with this process. And yes, Pila said that I considered the, yeah, that's correct. So certainly those verbs they gotta be in the past, which then demonstrates that you actually did it. So I hope that this content was really helpful and assist you in start writing your career episodes. And if you have any questions, please write them in the comments, or you can actually send me an email, or if you are in Instagram, you can send me a direct message as well, and I will endeavor to respond. So, and don't forget that on the 16th of August, 10 a.m. Brisbane time, I'm going to have the live webinar with the opening session of my free workshop, Engineering Qualification Validation in Australia. And I please register if you haven't registered yet. Once you register, you will receive two emails if you are not in my list already. If you are in my list already, when you register, you will get the confirmation of the registration. But if you are not receiving my emails, you will receive two emails. One email is about welcoming to Engineers in Australia website, and then the second email is confirming your registration. But make sure that you save my email address in your contacts, because especially if it is a Hotmail address, it's most certainly going to the junk mail box. So just check in your junk mail box as well if you haven't received my email. And the next Sunday, in my live session here in Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook, I'm actually going to talk about how the workshop is going to work. I'm going to give some details of what I'm going to do. It's going to be almost a week of content. So every day, pretty much every day, I will be doing something in terms of the workshop, giving you a lot of content, a lot of information to help you in this journey. And again, it's 100% free. You don't need to pay anything. And I hope that by the end of the workshop, you will have a very good understanding of the process, what you need to do to start your dream to come and be my colleague here in Australia and start your life transformation as an engineer here in Australia. So I'd like to thank you very much, guys, for your participation and your contribution. And if you are not in my YouTube channel, please uh, subscribe to my YouTube channel. I actually got a Telegram group. I don't know if you know what Telegram is, but Telegram is like a WhatsApp. And I've got a group in my Telegram, and I've got already 624 members in my group. And the advantage of Telegram is that I send messages to Telegram and everybody gets it. In WhatsApp, when I had my group in WhatsApp, WhatsApp has like a algorithm and it doesn't really kind of send messages to everyone. So in Instagram, if you are there, you can go to the link in my bio. There is one of the buttons after you click that link is to join my Telegram group, Engineering Qualification Validation. And if you are here in Facebook and YouTube, if you want to be part of my Telegram group, send me a message and I will send you the link. So I would like to thank you guys very much, and I'll see you there next Sunday in Instagram. This video is going to go to my IGTV and will be available there. And then I'm going to edit and I'm going to upload in my YouTube channel as well. Thank you very much, and I'll see you there. Bye bye.